So if you want to see the latest unreleased smartphones, just go on the subway. The Mate 30 Pro has been leaked again. Live images of this phone confirming pretty much everything we knew already. A redesign on the front screen there, a waterfall type curve at the sides, much more prominent than the previous version of the device. Yes, it has that big notch at the top. You can see some extra sensors in there. Then coming to the back, that camera unit is definitely a redesign. You have the sensor bar off to the left hand side and the camera unit in the middle, which we expect to be circular in design. It also seems to have a bar above that, which is as yet unexplained. So the big notch at the top is staying, but it looks like Huawei are adding extra functionality from what we got last year. Yesterday, a couple of videos surfaced showing what is possible on the new Mate 30 Pro with that sensor bar. Huawei may add air gestures to the device so that you can change certain things in certain apps. For example, flicking forward and back through songs, changing the volume, and a few other things too. This technology was showed off at HTC, the Huawei Developer Conference last week, and it could be something that premieres in EMUI 10 that goes along with the Mate 30 series. We've just seen the Galaxy Note 10 released, and you can do certain air gestures with the S Pen, for example, changing through screens or zooming in or out when you're using the camera. But this implementation doesn't use a pen, it just uses your fingers. Google is introducing a similar type of technology in the new Pixel 4 called Soli, and that has a lot of different sensors in it. But Huawei seemingly are adding the same or a similar functionality, but with slightly different sensors, whilst not using exactly the same sensors, getting basically the same functionality out of the phone. So the design at the front on the screen is definitely much changed from last year's design when it comes to the curved edges. It's what's known as a waterfall display. It curves quite heavily at the sides, and therefore you can fit more screen onto the device. Hence why the phone is tipped to get a bigger screen than last year at 6.71 inches. It does also seem that the device might be a little bit boxier too, which would make sense if it carries on the design changes from the P30 series. So really the big question is notch or no notch. When you do have a notch or a sensor bar, you can just add way more functionality to the phone in comparison to if you didn't have one. More sensors and more secure 3D face unlocking will add more functionality to the phone, but does take up some screen real estate in a world where we're moving to bezel-less displays. To be honest, I think screens are big enough where notches don't really bother me. Even if they're that big, I prefer to have extra sensors there, an extra speaker, so it's not too much of an issue for me. And if you look at these live images, it actually looks like you can just black out the top sensor anyway to basically have an all black top rather than a notch that interferes with the otherwise pristine display. And Oppo published today that under-screen camera tech that might get rid of notches isn't going to come this year. We know Oppo are working on that technology and definitely want to put it in phones as soon as possible, but not this year. Oppo are also working on a TV, but that won't come this year either. What will come and come this month, according to Oppo India Twitter, is an Oppo Reno 2 series. The Oppo Reno was a pretty big success for Oppo. You had the Oppo Reno, the Oppo Reno 10x zoom edition, and in China you have an Oppo Reno Z, which is a slightly cheaper version with only one main camera at the back. The Oppo Reno is going to be launched in India first, India before China, and it's going to come on the 28th of August. The specs are unknown or unconfirmed, but Oppo themselves confirm it will have a quad camera, so expect a main sensor and ultra wide, a zoom camera with 20x zoom. I'm expecting maybe 5, maybe 10x zoom, and then some digital zoom on top of that. And then the extra camera there is probably a depth sensor. So it looks like it might be replacing the normal Oppo Reno, which comes with a Snapdragon 710. So I'm expecting at least a 712 or maybe a Snapdragon 730 in that device. That would really be the only way to improve on that device, giving it quad cameras and a slightly better processor. The Oppo Reno is a good phone, but we're going into the era of quad cameras all around, even in budget devices with Realme and Redmi coming out with phones. And that phone with a 712 processor probably wouldn't compete with them Hence why Oppo want to update that line at the moment. Alright, that's it for now, but I'll see you in the next one.